I think that's what I think is a neat theme for today.
I think so too. Bring that up in the show too.
No.
Okay. Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. All right, everybody. Welcome to another new edition of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. I got it this week. Week. Yeah.
Yes.
Last week, not so much. Hi, Traci.
Hi.
So, Will,
Yes.
Banter time.
Uh-huh.
I have maybe a little confession to make.
Did you make this publicly?
Remember last week when I showed this?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I had the duck.
Well, it actually was episode 9. So, whoopsie-doo. So, if you move your head again, we are.
Let me move me.
Oh, that's right. 10th anniversary, take 2. So it's like 2 Christmases in 1 year. That's high production value.
That is. Don't edit that out.
Yeah. And if I'm not wrong, I think our friend Traci is frozen again. So Traci, blink off and come back while Will and I talk. There she goes. She'll be back. Smile. Okay, you're back.
That's wonderful to admit that faux pas. That is vulnerability 101 there, Mr. Lane.
That's what I do. But you'll also remember that we are promoting our live work in progress commercial product, he said smoothly. So this week, we're going to continue our offer. We are recording on Tuesday. Tonight, I'll put that one from last week out, so everybody will see that.
Yeah.
You'll also notice the work in progress logo is now visible instead of cut off at the top like it was last week. What do you think about that? Yeah, nice. Yeah. So our production value is definitely going up.
2 steps forward, 1 step back is fine. They don't all have to be forward.
And also, we're going to start producing audio versions only. And so that's going to take a little skill. So like for people who aren't on the audio or on the video, we're going to have to say what we see because this is a visual first. So why don't you describe what's over your head for the audio audience?
So there is a box above my head, and it is lovely. It is filled with presents, and it is themed around an anniversary, a 10th anniversary. Last week was our faux 10th anniversary. It was our 9th. It was like 10th anniversary eve. But now we're here. This is our 10th show. Is that correct, John?
That is correct. I double triple checked. Yeah.
And so we're having a 10th anniversary promotion with, I think last week we agreed it was going to be 100% off.
Little less, 20%.
Oh, yeah. Well, apples and watermelons.
Apples and watermelons.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing this kind of thing as a program for companies and organizations and lonely people and whoever's interested in
all the above,
getting better. Yeah,
all of the above. So great. Okay, well, we got that settled. So we'll put the link out for the first 10 folks that sign up, companies that sign up. We will do that. As always, let's kick the show off. I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are a work in progress. Now, speaking of works in progress, we have our special guest, Traci, here, and we're probably experiencing a little bit technical difficulties, but we are the One Take podcast. So we're just gonna keep it going. Traci's left, but she'll be right back.
Well, one of her strengths is clearly one of her superpowers is that she doesn't give up.
She does not give up.
Because she continues to try and
she is indefatigable.
Every time she logs back in, it's a lovely. Oh, look at that!
There
Smile.
She's back, and she's smiling and she's moving.
What did you do? Did you unplug it from the wall, or just go to a different room? What'd you do? It's working.
Yeah, keep doing it.
Yeah, I'll just keep replugging in. We're gonna make this happen.
It works. Like I said, our podcast is brought to you by Slipshod Productions. So we're okay with this. Traci, welcome.
John, thank you.
You don't know this, but you were the first guest to put their hand up and say you'd like to do our pod. And that meant so much to us because Will didn't even want to do the pod.
No, so I didn't want to come here today.
Having somebody of your stature just put in their hand up meant so much to us. So thank you. Maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Please.
Yeah,
please
and thank you. I am an executive leadership and performance coach. Hopefully I won't freeze here. And interesting way of coming into it. I actually, in 2012, I started working for 3 years at Banter Federal Prison with executive inmates.
Where you and Will met?
No. We met after that.
Bazinga.
He was out already.
Yeah, nice. I was out.
Yeah. But, these were the Bernie Madoffs. So high prestige, very powerful corporate individuals, who found themselves incarcerated. And so, really that 3 years time allowed me to kind of not only hone my skills as a coach in working with this type of leader, but really truly understand what it's like to be in those positions on the inside, so to speak, at the top, where it's quite lonely, and making decisions. And so I focus a lot on helping my clients make better decisions and communicate their visions more effectively, because my clients are also all visionary.
Wow. That is a niche, I will tell you. And what do they say? I say niche. There's riches in the niches. So how does that go? Something like that.
Niche.
Thank you. But you've got a very nice niche, and we're super happy to have you on the pod. So welcome, and let's kick off as we always do. So today we're going to cover superpowers and kryptonite. Those are identified through OAD. Will and I are distributors of the OAD platform. If anybody has any questions and wants to know more, you can contact me or him. We're pretty easy to find. But let's get into it. Will, what am I going to say now?
You're going to say, what does it feel like, Traci, to be reduced to a two-dimensional table?
Ooh, listen to what he said. He does it better than me.
Yeah, I think now that I've said it, you don't have to say it. So Traci,
I'm not going to say it. We're all about efficiency.
Traci, you probably respond. How does
Traci, what do you think?
I'm all about bringing the complexity down to simplicity. So I think it's great.
Awesome. Well, we love that. And you found the server to be pretty easy to take, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. Very easy.
You found it incredibly accurate, correct?
Yes. And very painless.
And super cost efficient, right?
Yeah,
she hasn't got the invoice yet? Oh, wait till you get that invoice.
Leading the witness. Forgive me. Okay, let's break this down. Now, what I've learned through trial and error in our podcast is that y'all can't see my mouse move, so I can't point to stuff. So up there, you see the little red dot in the middle, that's the median line. And if you see the words down the left, assertiveness, extroversion, patience, and detail orientation, those are the constructs that make up Traci's pattern. So anything to the right of that median line is dominant, anything to the left is subordinate. So Traci's dominant traits are extroversion, so she's super social. You'll know she's in the room. She's also has high assertiveness. If you don't know she's in the room, she's going to show you she's in the room. Her P for patience, in this case, it means that she can be, she's comfortable with change, but also operates with a sense of urgency. And she's back. Here she is. And also her detail orientation shows that she is likely a good delegator and flexible. And she's frozen. Can we hear you, Traci?
I know. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
I'm hiding behind the books.
You're hiding.
We'll go with
behind
voice so you can fix
yourself.
the visual. John, another upper right quadrant.
Yes. I forgot to do that, brother. So while Traci's coming back in and out, let me just click over to here. I don't have it. I didn't load it.
There she is.
There she is. All right, let's get back to Traci. Yep. So that's Traci. So she's got the high A, the higher E, low P, and mid D. And all that leads to certain level of superpowers and kryptonites. So Will, if I'm correct, this is when you start talking.
It is.
Carrying your weight.
This is, really, we're going to surface level this piece, the generic slides, and then we're going to dig in deeper on the areas where Traci commented back and gave us some information to work with. Traci, as we discussed earlier in show prep, anyone who's going to end up in this upper right quadrant in that builder influencer area is going to have these generic superpowers. One click from you, is there one of those that jumps out at you as like, that's absolutely me, or is super accurate, or that feels right?
Yeah, persuasive, which I guess that can kind of come across as its own kryptonite, I think.
Well, you persuaded us to have you as a guest, so I guess that works.
Yes. Very persuasive. And that certainly is a hallmark, John, for that upper right quadrant, for that high E.
Yes. Remember this?
Oh.
We'll go up a little.
Me up. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Here's Traci.
Oh, there's two of them.
We have two Tracis. What's better than one Traci?
There's two of me.
Two Tracis.
I like this. John, you're just doing amazing things with production here. This is awesome.
I don't know how I did that, but we'll try to repeat it. But yeah, so one of the things we do each week is we look to see where our guests land. Not every guest is going to, or every audience member knows what this means, but we have another builder on our hands. So welcome to the Builder Club, Traci. And I think it's because, well, I do most of the inviting, and I'm just inviting everyone like me, which is probably more of a coincidence because I don't plan things out that well.
No, well, you are one of those, popular kids in high school that only want to hang out with the other popular kids.
That probably isn't exactly true. Kryptonite.
So Traci, here again, one click. This is the generic for the quadrant and for your profile. Is there one of these that, you feel you've noticed under pressure, under stress, shadow side of the superpowers?
Yeah, I'd say not always sufficiently analytical.
So pressure's on, stressful situation, you believe that you're not doing enough analysis potentially of dynamic situation, and okay, got it. That's not easy to admit.
No.
Yeah, well, especially because I think our culture puts so much emphasis on being analytical and rational.
Yes.
And, I think number one, I'm a disruptor. If you hadn't noticed that already, I've disrupted this podcast in my own quiet way since we started. So I think part of it is I've embraced that. So I can admit it pretty easily because I see both the positive and negative sides to it. I think the analytical side can obviously be important. And if I'm looking to make sound decisions and I'm not being sufficiently analytical, then yes, that can cause some upheaval. But I think the disruptive side too tends to kind of keep people on their toes. And so, it's like, how do we work together in this disruptive or chaotic time? It's not just about me coming up with a solution. So that can also, because I'm not the one necessarily always bringing all the rational pieces to the puzzle, it kind of makes other people step up, and fill in the gaps. And as a natural leader, sometimes it's hard for people to do that unless I'm stepping back a little bit. In this case, it makes me step back because that non-analytical side.
Yeah, and let's just be clear. This doesn't mean you are not analytical or not an analytical person. I brought back the table here, and boy, I wish I had if you're listening, I need a pointer for my slides, and I can't just do that. Anyway, when you have a higher E, like the dominant E, which is the social side, there's a little bit of social acceptance. Like you want people to, you're a consultant, you want people to like you. It's not the only thing. But then you mix it with the low P urgency. There's this desire to make a decision and go because the clock is ticking. And so it's not like you're not analytical. It's just that there are other drivers that make a decision, and that can lead to maybe not coming across as analytical as you could be. Good. And so now
it's all about how the four components are in relation to one another.
Correct.
As opposed to analyzing them.
That's right.
In isolation.
Exactly right, Will. And then under stress, then some of those dominant drivers begin to work overtime, and the low P for patience and urgency mixed with the high E, and all of a sudden you're off to the races. And I know this because I, as we all know, I am a builder. So now we're going to go to Traci's specifics, reflections on her superpowers, and we're going to take an edit break now. So this is around minute 26. Traci, you might want to pop back in again.
Okay.
So much for one take productions.
Yeah.
Hello.
We function. There she is.
Hello. Yes, I'm back. I just opened my door. There's nobody in the house, thankfully, except for the dog. So hopefully she'll be quiet.
Oh, well.
I was wondering if maybe the internet wasn't like it's popping me out because my door was closed. And so hopefully that will.
Not sure. Well, if the pup comes in, what kind of dog do you have?
So she's a mutt. She's a black lab.
Yay.
She's this funny little tiny black lab. I mean, she's about, I don't know, 40 pounds. Yeah, somehow a black lab and a dachshund got together. I'm still not sure how that worked, but
I wouldn't want to see that.
Yeah, she has a very interesting look, but she looks like a mini, like her legs are a little shorter than normal, but yeah, she looks like a mini black lab.
What's her name?
Luna.
Send us a picture. We'll put her in one of the promote. All right, Will, we're at the specific section. Traci was kind enough to put some of these together for us. So why don't you lead her through her superpowers?
So Traci, as opposed to on the generics page where I kind of had you just talk about one, this is let's be open and honest and vulnerable time. And as you reflected on the superpowers, which we're going to spend much more by comparison on the kryptonite, because that's the juice. But what here, in your role as a leader, when you've been leading others or led your business, or coaching, consulting, and enabling others to be better leaders, which of these superpowers do you really feel stands out, and why did you comment on the way you did?
So if I'm looking at the entire list, I think, I do pivot and think well on my feet, which can really be important when you never know what's coming next. And I'll tell you, with visionary leaders, you never know what's coming next.
Yeah.
So, but also the collaborative piece, because part of what I do with my clients, I kind of call myself a confidant to visionary execs, because, they're used to not knowing who they can trust and who they can share with, where it's safe, where it's, they can be vulnerable and it's not going to come back and bite them. And so I think for me to really be able to be collaborative in those spaces and allow them to trust that, what I bring to the table is valuable for them, and it does help them become better leaders, that I think is probably the standout in my work.
That's great. What do you think when you look at these superpowers and you think about how your career evolved? We'll finish up on this slide here after this question, but is there one or two of these that you feel like were the personality and characteristic traits that made it a no-brainer that you've ended up doing what you're doing, for a living?
Yeah, it's the communication piece. I've been, I was an active communicator, but I've been told by my parents out of the womb. So I was early to speak. I wasn't early to walk or anything else, but I was very early to talk. And so I think that piece, I don't have a problem I mean, even if I'm bumbling through it, I'm trying. I don't mute is not really a thing that I know very well. And yet listening, I think, is different than muting ourselves, right? So I always tell people, it is important to learn how to listen. Communication is more probably about that than anything else. But yeah, I studied languages in my early career. I went into teaching foreign language, developing curriculum and teaching foreign language. So, language and communication has kind of always been my bag.
Well, you said a couple of things. One is bumbling through. Welcome to our podcast.
It's the definition of such.
Yes, and two, Will, we should probably listen to some of the things that she teaches. We could up our game a little bit. But what I like, the one that I see here, see if this works. How far will that go up? Oh, it ends. Big hands. Collaborative efforts are the most fun. In previous podcasts, I've talked about if you put me in the room with a blank sheet of paper and ask me to work on a project or a solution and come back in 2 hours, you're going to get more or less a blank sheet of paper. Put me in a room with people who are in good faith trying to have conversations and drive and ideate, you'll come out with like the beautiful mind board that's like all crazy and stuff written in the sides. And so I get that same energy from people. And I think you with your high E do as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a great story. I can subscribe to that.
Oh, good. Well, I contributed.
You did.
And
it's important.
What are the key words? Oh, she's flashing again.
Oh, I like that.
Catch John doing what?
Something good.
Something right.
Or right. Or both.
Or both. Yeah, it's good. Through the magic of the internet, we present Traci Philips. Hi, Traci.
I'm adding a whole new piece to your.
We are the Slipshod production. So
we have one podcast where the guest Clark was on his phone because he couldn't get his laptop to work. Look, he was locked in a cell. And it's interesting that you started your business helping inmates. So maybe that those two things tie together.
See, look at you. You pulled that. That's called a through line in journalism. So really well done. Really well done.
By the way, I did major in journalism in college. Did you know that?
There you go.
Nice.
That's right.
Okay. Kryptonite.
All right, Traci. So this is when stress is on, pressure's here, failure's a factor, and the shadow side of the things that make us great can inhibit us, break us down, lead to missteps. As you analyze the kryptonite results of the OAD profile, you picked out and scribbled some things down. Why don't you review that and tell me what you want to talk about, and I'll come with a question or two out of it.
So I think can you hear me? Because I
can hear
you loud and clear.
Flashed out. So
keep on talking and
I'll keep on talking while I can. So I think, there's a couple that really stand out, but if I had to, being asked to pick one and I'm trying to follow direction, which I'm not usually good at, would be, honoring the roles of structure and consistency, because I am constantly wanting to do it differently.
So say more about that. You recognize that there should be some structure and consistency and you resist it?
I realize where the roles of structure and consistency are helpful, but I'm designed to buck the system. So it's about reminding myself, how can I buck within the structure and how can I basically have it all, right? How can I honor the structure and consistency while I'm there to disrupt? In other words, how can I do it in such a way that's going to be received? And that is a constant, I'll say struggle. It's a constant place of awareness that I have to keep front and center.
Yeah.
I'm going to yank on something here because it ties into what we message about our content in our podcast: vulnerability, no humble brags, those kinds of things.
And we'll just wait a second for Traci to come back, but I will say we have our through line. Oh, there she is. Let me just finish my joke. Sorry. We have our cold open line, which was how do I buck? So.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So I think you've made the cold open, Traci. We'll see what else is recorded, but yeah, nice.
On the vulnerability allows true connection. Like I said, I want to yank on that a little bit. This podcast, that assessment that you took, is supposed to have you analyze weaknesses and faults and be vulnerable. It's part of what you do in your business. I imagine it's part of what you're asking your clients to give you. So, talk about what you mean there by vulnerability allows true connection, please.
So I have a story, a real quick one that I think illuminates that the best. And so back in I think it was 2010, I was doing a presentation and a gentleman approached me beforehand and said, I've looked into your background, heard good things about you, looking for a coach. I think I might want to hire you. Can we talk afterwards? And when I came off the stage afterwards, he came up to me with his hand outstretched and a business card and said, I've chosen not to work with you. I'd like to know why. Give me a call. And he turned around and walked away.
Ooh.
And that was one of those ego moments, where I'm like, I could sit here and I could project a heck of a lot, make myself feel better. Or I could realize that this is a potentially really, it's a gift, right? This guy sees something I don't see. And, so of course I called him. We had coffee and he said, I'm at a point in my life, I'm mid-60s, career guy, done it all, had the power, prestige, all that. I'm in a different season in my life and I'm really looking for a coach to help me create a certain level of vulnerability because I want to connect to my life. I want to connect to my kids. I want to connect to my wife. I've spent my whole life connecting with my career and I think I don't know how to connect with people. Wow. And he said, and you can't do that for me because I was watching you on stage and you're perfect. And I know there's no such thing as perfect, which means you're impenetrable, right? You're not vulnerable yourself.
Whoa.
And so I don't see how you can help me be more vulnerable. It was one of those, I don't know if either of you have had those experiences where it's the bullseye, right between the eyes. The truth hit me so hard and I knew it was true. I didn't know how and I didn't like it, but I knew what he was saying was absolutely 100% true. So it set me on a different trajectory, quite frankly. And since 2010, I have been focusing on just that. How do I start to develop this part of me that's so, this design in me that's so focused on vision and purpose and the bigger picture stuff, but it's a lot of times will leave me, the joke in my family is I'm not the cuddler. Both my husband and daughter are cuddlers. And so they like to get me in the middle and in the sandwich. And they're like, we're going to cuddle her to death, because I just, and it's that sense of being able to connect at a true level of human being, what we need as human beings. And so, that's what I mean by that is that, that's a kryptonite for me, but it's also probably one of my biggest points of potential growth.
So then would you say, Traci, in a situation where stress is high or challenge is great, or you're, looking at the edge of the cliff at failure, do you believe that you become more vulnerable or less vulnerable? Do you open up to that or do you shut down?
Less. My past when I wasn't aware of this is I would gear up, right? You couldn't see me sweat. I would look like I had it all together, even if I was losing inside. So there's a benefit to that if I was out on the battlefield. But, to your point, the nature of the work I do, I'm not on a battlefield, right? I'm trying to connect with people and get them to connect with themselves. So I have to model and mirror that. And, that's where it's become increasing. I mean, we choose what we do for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Stretching.
I bet that choice changed the dynamic and landscape of your client base over the last decade plus. I mean, I bet your customers, the people that you work with as you went down that path after that, reflection moment in 10, the bullseye moment, probably, altered the practice.
It did. I mean, I still attract the people who struggle with vulnerability, right? They're the people who feel like they have to have it all together at all times. in order
Like
to,
John.
otherwise they'll lose their edge,
That's
right?
me.
They won't be as productive or as powerful or whatever it is they're going for. But, kind of I'm very vulnerable. I tell a lot of stories about myself and failure points in order to help kind of invite them into that space.
In service of others. So, Will, you can tell I'm listening. I'm waiting to talk, but I would say, Traci, that you are a work in progress.
Oh, for sure. Always.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And the vulnerability. And that's what we do here. And even though we goof around a little bit, having people come on and just talk about not only being vulnerable, but actually the powerfulness of being vulnerable, because you can shake things off. If you take yourselves too seriously, you're brittle, or you can be brittle, and there's no bouncing back. Whereas if you're vulnerable about it, you give yourself some wiggle room to like shake it off and not be defined by a single moment or a single career failure or what have you, and get back out there. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I can't tell if you're doing a hang 10 or if you're on the phone.
With this big hand thing?
Yeah.
Before, and we're going to move to close, I imagine here. John's got that look on his face.
We'll edit this all out.
But Traci, like John said at the beginning, we were thrilled and flattered that you raised your hand and said, I want to be on there. What was it that led you to do that? You've got plenty of people to talk to and spend time with, as opposed to us two goofballs. But was there something about the theme of it, or the title, or the logo that John had designed, or what was it that drew you to want to be here with us today?
So if I leave anything out of my list, it's not because I didn't like that too, but part of it is I really like Will. I like what I like what you're doing out there. I mean, the first time I met you, I like your style, so I was very interested to watch the podcast because of you initially, but then I really like what you're doing because it's different. I mean, it's helping people. It's not just talking about things. It's showing the analytics, which I think, is a big piece for people, is to be able to see it kind of on a chart and graph and in real life. This is me on paper in 2 dimensions, but there's a power to that. And I think also then giving people the opportunity in a very succinct amount of time to kind of explore a different side of what they probably typically spend time doing in their day to day.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. John, make that part of our commercial.
Yes, that'll be part of our commercial. So what did we learn? How, Traci, this is where we continue to put you on the spot, but I think you're pretty self-aware. You've been through some stuff, but let's say you learned something from today. How might you use that going forward? And then, Will, I'm going to ask you the same thing, so be ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the more I talk about this, the more it kind of it makes it go deeper. It's not like I'm not consciously aware, but we've got 3 brains, so just to be conceptual is one thing, but to really, every time we talk about the things that are important to us, it brings it more into the other areas, our other intelligences. And so I'm just reminded today, I don't know if it's something I learned new or just was reminded, of opportunities to really have these kinds of conversations. It is nice because I'm kind of doing that to other people all day long.
Yes.
So there's a certain, like, I love it. Yeah, I really I like it. I guess maybe that's something I learned, is how much I really enjoy turning that lens, on those aspects of myself, to really look at them and consider them, even if not for a new, I mean, just again, reconsider them, because that's always a benefit.
Like it. Will?
Yeah, well, thank you, John. We were excited to have you just because we have not had someone on who is, in coaching and is, focused on doing this for others, and probably, as they're doing it for others, self-analyzes, but maybe not to the degree that we did on this little podcast today. So, John, prompt me again. Exactly what do you want me to accomplish in this segment here? Talk about how I'm going to take what we learned today.
Yeah, if you want, just take this going forward.
Look, the work in progress thing is, it's fun and it's kitschy and it's accurate. But I think that one of the things that I have learned in this discussion with Traci, in working with an executive coach, shout out to John Fallberg in my past, but just in general, is I'm always a work in progress, personally and professionally, and I'm never not doing what Traci's doing, which is analyzing others, because I'm in recruiting for a living, but
Oh
also
yeah,
trying
me
to
too.
analyze myself all the time, and work on my weaknesses, of which there are plenty.
So, Will, are you saying that the OAD assessment might have some value in a recruiting environment? Commercial.
Oh, I can't imagine why it wouldn't. Not only with helping you evaluate good talent on the front end and who's the right fit for role, but also are the right people in the right seats right now. And am I maximizing my talent utilization in commercial?
Love it. And for me, just I I hid my vulnerability most of my life, and it took me a long time to not do that. I probably overshare now, but I just find that just having human moments connect people together, and hiding from them doesn't do yourself or anyone any good.
No.
Traci, putting you on the spot. Now you've been through this. Now that you've been through the cauldron of Will Barfield interview, and let's call it what it is, interrogation.
Yep.
Who might you recommend up next? And we'll write their name down. Then we'll embarrass them in social media, and maybe they'll join us.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is kind of a tough one because I know a lot of people who would love this process. But so who I'm putting up on is Vinay Raman, and he's with a company called Carmo.
Okay.
Yeah, Vinay Raman. He's a friend of mine. I've worked with him in a variety of capacities, but he is a people analytics person. So I think this stuff is going to jive with him on a lot of different
Oh yeah,
fronts.
he'll love this, John. I know Vinay.
You guys are going to have some fun. I can't wait to actually see that show.
Oh, cannot wait. All right, so we're wrapping it up. Everyone knows I'm John Lane.
Oh, am I Will Barfield? I think. Yeah,
and we are
definitely
a work in progress. Thank you, Traci.
Traci, it was a
Thank
blast.
you. And
Thank
I
you
have
for
to
being
say,
here.
when your camera flickered out, it looked like you were Star Trek beaming in. So let's just say that's what you were doing. So thank you for beaming in from Starship Enterprise. We appreciate it.
I appreciate being here.
Have
Thank
a good
you
week.
both.
Bye. Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions, available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.